business to tackle them. So without further ado, I will introduce Donna, who'll be giving the first part of this conversation. Have we got Donna in the room?
I can't see Donna now on the call, Sam, just to let you know, but there are a lot of names. Just check. No, we don't. I think we have Emma, though. I can see you. Hi.
Hi.
We do have Emma. I will tell you what, Emma, what I will do is I'm sharing your slides. I've combined them with Donna's. So what I will do is I will skip through to yours.
Okay, lovely.
And I'll try and get in touch with Donna. There we go.
Okay, yeah, lovely. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm Emma Alterton. I'm the Future Development Manager, and I've come to talk to you around something that we kicked off just before Christmas around pollutions. So as a company, Anglian Water had a look at how we were doing on our pollutions. And whilst we were still within all of our targets and we were reducing them, certainly the lower category pollutions, it was felt that we could do a lot better on this. So what we did was, as a company, we said that we wanted to have more of a focus on this. And we pulled together a pollutions task force from across the business. And there were various different cells that were set up to look at different areas of how we might be able to prevent pollutions. So the group that I was involved with was the one around data and digital. So Anglian Water as a company collect huge amounts of data around our system, what's going on in the sewers, what's going on in our pumping stations. It was about trying to use that to manage the risk and identify where we might be able to predict pollutions are coming. So in terms of our group, we wanted to be a little bit more agile in the way that we structured this and make use of agile methodology to get to some answers and some solutions in a quicker time frame. So the first thing we did was we said, right, what is it that we're trying to achieve? And we set out our purpose. And it was all around making that risk for pollutions visible, trying to be predictable, and therefore trying to prevent it using sort of the digital and data that we had available. If you want to click on for me. Sorry. So in order to do this, we wanted to bring people together from across the business rather than just chunking work up and giving it out to different teams who would then go off and work on it independently. And whilst that level of cooperation, has worked in the past, we really wanted this to be a collaborative effort because we wanted to try and generate some different thinking and some different results. So we brought together this team from across the business, and we had sort of a leads team who would pose some high-level questions, and then we pulled our staff into a team and kind of let them loose on it and said, where do you think the problems are and how are we going to tackle that? If you want to click onto the next slide. So what we did was we made sure that we had people that covered all of these different areas. So we had the people who could get us the access to the data, because as with any big organisation, we have it stored in lots of different separate pockets. And actually to get the best results, we needed to pull it all together. So we had people that could get into those databases and those disparate systems. We then had the analysts who were there who could pull that all together and do some fancy algorithms and really kind of pull out the patterns as to what was happening on the ground. We also had the ability through GIS and through things like Power BI and digital apps to be able to present that data in a different manner than we'd done before. And I think the key for us was that we had subject matter experts in the room. So we had alarm handlers and we had guys from tactical operations and field operations who actually get to go out on site and deal with the actual pollution incidents. So they were giving us live feedback on what we were doing, and they were instrumental in helping us develop any of our solutions. So it wasn't just a case of us going away and finding something that they were interested in. It was very much a case of they were at the heart of any solutions we were building. And as you can see, it really helped us to to get some quick wins and to get some good insight, and we tended to hit them quicker. We found we tended to have more success, and I think that really was down to mixing the data and the analysts in with those subject matter experts. And we did ask the guys, because it was a bit different for how we normally work, and they really felt that it was much more supportive, and people really enjoyed working in this manner. So it went down very well with the team. If you want to click on one, please. So this is the sort of things that we produced. So one of the things that we were getting quite a lot of feedback from our alarm handlers and our tactical operations was that we have a lot of alarms. We have a lot of telemetry information, and certainly when something happens, shall we say, we've had a wet weather incident, a bit like we had over Christmas, we get a lot of alarms saying pumps are running, or we've got a lot of high wet wells, or we've got a lot of information coming in. And what they're saying is, how do we weed that out to say which out of these 500 alarms that are coming in on an hourly basis do we need to send someone out to? Do we need to really concentrate on, because that's where we potentially have a pollution incident? So that's what we did. We worked with them to try and attach criticality to the pumping stations that we were seeing and the alarms that we were seeing, to make sure that those most important ones were rising to the top. Those where we had only a single pump or there was a single point of failure, again, would rise to the top. And what we could then do is we could send people out to the ones that we knew had a high likelihood of being a pollution or a potential pollution incident, so they could stop it before there was a problem. So for instance, one of the ones we have is around missing sewage. So that's where inlet blockage alarms coming. So that's right at the beginning of any water recycling sort of centre. We get an alarm, and obviously if we've got a blockage there, everything will back up and then potentially would cause a pollution. So before we started this, we didn't have any logic on those alarms, so we had to send someone out to check every single one to make sure that we weren't having a pollution. After this, we worked with the guys in the field to actually refine that logic, because there were other reasons why those alarms would be going off and it wouldn't be a pollution incident. So we could triage them. So as the guys are now just going out to the ones that they really need to go out to at that point in time. Before Christmas, we had saved over 300 hours in operations time of sending someone out to alarms that they didn't need to go out to, and yet we are still finding the any true potential pollution events and being able to stop them before they become a pollution. That was a real good win for us in terms of time saved. Would you like to hop on to the next one? Another big focus for us in terms of data was around our pumps. So one of the key root causes for pollutions is where we have pump failure somewhere on our system, because obviously if the pump is no longer running or working or isn't working at an optimal performance level, it won't be moving the sewage at the level that we have designed the system to work at. So we need to know where these are. So pump performance is really key, because we can use that to predict. We can see performance degradation. We know that we're going to have a problem in however many days or weeks time, so we can be more proactive in sending someone out there to fix that before they're out there. And we also have one that manages pump availability. So if we have got a pump that's down, it highlights those sites, again looking at criticality, where we need to prioritise our operations. So if we have a pump out on a large site and it's 1 out of 6 is gone down, we know we can still manage because we've still got the capacity. However, if we have got a pump that's out at maybe a smaller rural setting, it could be that that's the only pump on the site, and they're the ones therefore we need to prioritise and triage and get someone out there quicker. So that's what we've been doing, and we've really been just sort of like directing some of this, and it's really been working, and it's gone down really well with the guys on the ground, because we're sending them out to jobs and they are the right jobs, and they are being able to fix and prevent the pollutions. And we have seen a reduction in the number of pollution incidents that we have seen, and it hasn't exacerbated in any way, which is really good. So that's just a very quick run around of what we were doing in that agile team and the way that we changed our working practices. Any questions?
Sam, I have some questions, but I can see we have Donna in the room now. So should we hold them to the end?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we can hold them to the end. I will skip back to the. There we go. So, introducing Donna, who's our pollution risk manager, and she'll be talking about driving down environmental pollutions and our pollution incident reduction plan.
Yeah, morning everyone. Thanks very much for having me. I'll just start by introducing myself. So I'm pollution risk manager. So I joined Anglian Water about 6 months ago, and I've been focusing on our pollution incident reduction plan. So taking a more sort of strategic approach to how we drive down pollutions. I'm just having a few technical difficulties with my laptop. If you just bear with me, I think I'm going to have to leave and rejoin the meeting, so I can't see the slides. So just bear with me.
No problem. I can see some questions for Emma. So we had one from Robert Stanford, Emma, around who was your sponsor and what was your governance structure?
So in terms of the entire pollution task force, it was it was directed by our chief exec, who identified this as you need to. So Peter Simpson said, we are going to concentrate on this. And then we had, but in terms of the cell that we were looking at, that we reported into, actually it was quite a group effort. So they had, I was the Scrum Master, we had the head of asset intelligence, we had the manager of water recycling optimization, we had the head of TAC ops, and we collectively worked together in that way. So there wasn't one person who said that's the person who's responsible for it. And then we obviously reported up into the wider project what we were doing. But we were the ones who defined and prioritised the questions that we wanted the team to ask.
Thank you. We'll hold the rest till the end, and Donna, I can see you're back.
Really
so
sorry,
kick off.
I'm back. Hopefully everything will run smoothly from now. Yeah, so if we could just move on to the next slide. Thank you. Just to give a bit of context, really. So obviously the Environment Agency is our regulator, and they regulate all activities and discharges to the environment. And alongside that, we also have permits which stipulate the conditions of those. So when we're talking about pollution incidents, we're really talking about unplanned discharges to the environment. Now, some of those discharges are obviously permitted discharges. So an example of that would be emergency overflows that protect businesses and properties from flooding. But we also have some unplanned non-permitted discharges. So that would be examples where we've got power failure or potentially a mechanical failure of a pump, and we've had to discharge to the environment. So the Environment Agency are primarily concerned with the impact that those discharges have to the environment, and they'll categorise them from 1 to 3, depending on the severity. And they take into account visual impact, impact to ecology, the distance that obviously that pollution impact, the pollution has impacted, amenity value of the site that's been impacted, and also impact to agriculture and commerce and various other bits and pieces. So 1 is a major incident, 2 is a significant incident, and 3 is a minor incident. So in terms of how our environmental performance is measured, we're measured on the number of those category 1, 2 and 3 incidents that we have in a calendar year. So primarily this is through the Environment Agency Environmental Performance Assessment. So they're interested in the total number of pollutions, the number of serious pollutions, so that's category 1 and 2, and also the percentage of pollution incidents that are self-reported. So that is a measure essentially to gauge how aware we are of what our assets are doing, how they're operating. And then we're also regulated by Ofwat as well, who are interested in the total number of pollutions from sewerage assets per calendar year. And that's normalised by 10,000 kilometres of sewer. And the reason for that is to enable them to compare the performance of different water companies. So in terms of our performance, aside from the fact that it's an activity that we are measured and regulated on by the Environment Agency Ofwat, our environmental performance is really important to us. So written in our Articles of Association is this phrase at the very top there that you can see about bringing environmental prosperity to the region we serve. So it's very much part of our purpose. And you can see there on the right hand side that the total number of pollutions that we've seen over the last 10 years, it has fallen. So we are trending downwards, and obviously our aspiration is to get down to 0 pollutions. So we're really pleased with the progress we've had so far. You will see there is some fluctuations year to year, and predominantly that is due to changes in sort of weather. So you'll see 2019 particularly was a difficult year for us back end because of quite extreme weather. And in terms of our total serious pollutions, that's stable, but we've still got a bit of work to do to bring those down. I'm sure Emma's presentation there told you about some of the things that we've been doing to try and tackle that. Our self-reporting is improving, and we have the least visibility there of our network assets. As we go forward, and I talk a bit more about what we're planning to do, that's something that we'll be addressing by looking at increased monitoring and smart networks as well. Now, can you move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I don't know, some of you might have seen that we've got an existing pollution incident reduction plan on our website. So we've got various different initiatives going on, so I'll just pick out a few. We've already looked at some of our risk profiling of our assets. We revised that so that we've got a better understanding of, which ones potentially could have the greatest impact on the environment. We've installed lots of pressure monitors, particularly in our rising mains, and that's really helped us to prioritise investment and understand which areas are at risk. We've allocated £4 million invested in pumping station resilience. So that might include looking at how we can get pumps to auto restart. It might be looking at different pumps in particular pumping stations to accommodate the very unique characteristics of that particular pumping station and the types of material that comes through to those. So that's well underway. We've had some success with our Keep It Clear programme as well. So we found in our hotspot focus areas, we saw a 43% reduction in blockages, and that was compared to a 24% reduction across the region just with our general communications that we were doing. And we've also initiated a partnership working with ECAS, and they go and visit restaurants and talk to them about grease management and help to kind of make them compliant with what's required. So there's already lots of really great activities going on through this pollution incident reduction plan. As I mentioned earlier on, I joined about 6 months ago. And what we've done is we've sort of been working through a revised version of this pollution incident reduction plan. Obviously, we've got data all of the time that we're looking at and processing. We felt that there was perhaps more that we could have done. So if we could go to the next slide, I'll just talk a little bit more about that process. So what we did, we carried out some root cause analysis of our data from the last 3 years. So that was looking at all of the internal information we have and also the information that the Environment Agency shares with us. We carried out some surveys with about 1,000 of our technicians. So they're our frontline responders that go out and handle pollution incidents. We also did some focus groups with about 30 technicians from the water and the waste side of the business. We did a benchmarking activity with other water companies. So we had a look at all of their pollution incident reduction plans, looking there for opportunities to collaborate or share information and to support one another really. We did stakeholder workshops, we got feedback from the EA, and we also got feedback from customers. And so that led to then the development of, if we can just move on again, the development of 15 key focus areas for action. So those are essentially statements that tell us what it is that we need to address in order to pull the pollution number down. So those are focused around what the asset root cause was, our response, and also kind of the regulatory and post-event parts of that. From that, we've got 60 different initiatives that address those 15 key focus areas, and they broadly fall into these four areas, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. So looking at asset care, data interaction, increasing knowledge, and efficient processes. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. What I will just talk about briefly is some of the findings from that work that we did, and then I'll talk more about our revised plan and what kinds of things are included. So we found that quite a lot of our serious pollutions were actually from potable water sources. So I think over the last 3 years, 26% of them were from potable water. So we've now got a very substantial plan in place on our water side of the business, looking at how we respond, and that's included the provision of pollution vans and an additional pollution kit to enable us to get out and mitigate as quickly and easily as possible. We found that most of our incidents were from pumping stations and foul sewers, and that's something that's common throughout the whole water industry. And as a result of that, obviously, we're continuing with the £4 million investment that I mentioned earlier about pumping station resilience, but we're also looking at our planned maintenance as well, and how we can better target those areas that are continuously causing problems, or where we've got repeat blockages that then present a risk of pollutions. We found that our self-reporting was lowest on network assets. So 45% of our incidents actually were on network assets were reported to us by members of the public. So as a result of that, we're making some tweaks to our report and incident tool on the website to try and refine the reports that we do have through, to make sure that we do catch all possible pollution incidents. But we're also looking at rolling out monitoring on our sewers as well. So we've got some monitors going in Southend for a bit of a trial, and we're also looking at rolling them out more broadly and looking at the potential for a smart network as well. So that's really, really interesting. We also found that in terms of root causes, it's predominantly blockages. So 32% of incidents were due to blockages. And again, we'll be continuing with our Keep It Clear campaign and hope to have the same sort of level of success we have so far. We found that 22% of our incidents were from assets being hydraulically overloaded in periods of wet weather. We've already got some large investment planned as part of the WINEP to upgrade and create additional capacity at some of our works, but we're also focusing on our Make Rain Happy campaign, which looks at how we can increase storage across the whole catchment, like looking at sustainable urban drainage and working with them schools and communities to try and create additional space where that water can go. And then we found that the rest of our root causes were around structural failures, so bursts. Again, we're putting in quite a lot of monitoring. So we've put pressure monitors on our rising mains already, and we're looking to roll out, I think 80% of water mains will have pressure monitoring by the end of the AMP period as well. Electrical issues are also a problem for us, so power cuts. We're already working with the power networks, but we're also looking at installing additional equipment that will help our pumping stations to sort of self-recover instead of having to send a technician out to deal with that. So we're looking at the option of brownout timers and similar, obviously alongside the telemetry that we already have that does tell us if there is an issue on a site. We've also got mechanical failures, third party and human error as other root causes, so they were quite small compared to the others. So that's sort of some of our findings and how it links to some of the things that are here on the in our pollution incident reduction plan. I'll just spin through a couple of others. So around asset care, I've already talked about the investment that we're making. I've talked a bit about creating capacity, and we're also spending a lot of time looking at our planned maintenance. So that is the lengths of sewer we clean, the wet wells that we clean, and our general kind of maintenance of electrical components, mechanical components on our pumping stations. Data into action, you heard a lot from Emma there about what we've been doing in terms of creating insight and visibility to help us sort of prioritise and understand where the risk lies. We're also doing a lot of work to increase the information that we have on various assets, particularly those that are adopted assets and those that perhaps are more rural, smaller sites that we perhaps don't visit as often as our critical sites. We are looking at doing some really smart things with our data in terms of understanding risk and risk profiling as well, which we started last year and will continue to do, and that's something that needs to be updated continually depending on obviously the performance of the asset as well. Efficient processes, we're looking at resource availability. So part of our field effectiveness programme, we're looking at how we can make our journeys for our technicians more efficient in terms of how we plan and schedule work. We're also looking at tanker availability, and we've got a new system coming in that will enable us live to see the location and the status of all of our tankers. That will be really helpful in planning and organising workload, particularly in wet weather. And we're also changing some processes to look really carefully at the data that comes out of the post-event analysis, so our investigations of pollution incidents, so we can start trending more carefully, and looking there, repeat root cause, and making sure that we really do focus in on some of those issues that are not being resolved the first time round. And the last box there is increasing knowledge. So that's all about continually educating our customers. So we'll continue with our Keep It Clear campaign. We've also got a Pollution Watch campaign, which encourages the community to report to us anything that they think they see that might be unusual, or anything that any impact that they might have seen to the environment. We're also doing a lot of work internally to revise our training, and we're also extending that not just to those people that respond to pollutions or are directly involved in pollutions, but company-wide, to make sure that the whole business has an awareness of pollutions and can contribute to that, and is aware of it in their business as usual activities. One of the most important things is working together. So we've got some groups set up with other water companies to knowledge share. We're also obviously looking at how we can work better with our regulators, and internally as well, how we can share knowledge, particularly between the water colleagues and our water recycling colleagues. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of just a flavour really of some of the things that we're working on at the moment. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Donna. There's loads of questions in the chat. So what I'm going to propose, we had a bit of spare time at the end of the conference from things. So I will do some questions now, and we'll move on to the next session, but I may also bring some questions back to you at a later stage. So one from Alan. So there seems to be no document that sets out precisely which WFD water bodies your sewage works and storm overflows, e.g. at pumping stations, discharge to. Can you make that basic data available for CamEO catchments? It would be really helpful.
Emma, do you know anything about the availability of that data?
I think we've got it captured in the GIS. I'd have to ask. I haven't got it to hand, but I can find out for you.
Thank you. And one from Robert saying, have you thought of using AI to predict where your issues are going to occur?
Yes. Do you want to answer that,
Emma? So we are, and we have. And some of the things that I was actually talking about, the reason we had things like data scientists in the Agile group was because we were using some advanced algorithmics and telemetry information to actually understand which of the telemetry monitors we needed to prioritise. We have also got another big project, which was to one side of this, around our modelling. So we've got a couple of initiatives in that, but we've invested a lot of money in in modelling for sort of pollution prevention. Using things like neural networks and other advanced AI to actually try and learn and predict and then repredict that model. So it's about iterating around and learning from what comes out of it. So yes, is the short answer.
Brilliant. And then one from Claire Higson. Looking back at your project, I think this is directed at Emma, how surprised are you at the impact you made?
I would say, I suppose, so I, a bit like Donna, am relatively new to Anglian Water, and my background is IT. So I have seen where sort of like sort of an agile methodology and getting people to work together from front office and back office can really produce some amazing results. So I kind of was less surprised that we got something, but I was really surprised and pleased at how well the staff who were put into this group and who had never necessarily worked in this way before really took to it and really loved it, and not just took the ideas but properly owned them and ran with it and were really excited about it. So that was really lovely to see.
Great. There's another one from Alan. There's real-time warning notification systems of likely storm overflows would be really valuable for rivers, especially where there's a lot of wild swimming, such as the Cam. Is that plausible or possible?
Yeah, we have got lots of monitors going in. We've got lots of event duration monitors going in at the moment. We've got quite an ambitious programme. The data that I think there's data already published that you can download and get hold of that shows the location and the duration of spills that have occurred. We do have longer term aspirations to share that data and make that much easier for members of the public to access. So that's certainly something we're doing.
Brilliant, thanks. And from Steve Hopper, there's lots of great information being collected. How much of this could be shared outside of the company? As an EA water quality planner, I'm particularly interested in some of the risk information and how that relates to new development and future planning network upgrades. So I think, again, that's all about sharing data.
That is about sharing data. So we'd need to have a chat on our water optimization team and see what sort of information you would be looking and wanting and where it's going to be used. But I'm sure that we could have a further discussion on that, and then I can get the relevant people who own the data then to have a view on it.
Brilliant. Thanks,
but yeah,
Emma.
I think generally a better understanding of our risk and a better understanding of our environment generally would help between different organisations.
Brilliant. Data sharing is a theme running through a lot of the questions that I'm seeing now. So what I'm going to do is all the data sharing questions, we will take them away and we can provide more consolidated response when we can actually have all the people around the table that are responsible for managing that data.
We obviously just need to be quite careful about sort of like data ownership and GDPR and other bits and pieces. So I don't want to categorically say yes or no anywhere along that. I'd rather have a look at them and where we can help. Absolutely, then let's share.
Absolutely. So if a lot of incidents are caused by pump failure, is there a project to have more backup pumps? And also, is there a major sewage event? Do we notify river users?
So in terms of backup pumps, I think Donna has mentioned on some of this, we're obviously looking at that resilience piece and we are investing in that. What we're also doing is very much looking at the planned maintenance and preemptive maintenance to ensure then that the pumps are visited on a more regular basis if there are a single point of failure, so as and also monitoring them so as we can get out there quicker if anything goes wrong. But also wherever we can, if we've got a backup, then we try and put that in. Yeah. But historically our network's been in for some parts of it is like hundreds of years old in the nicest possible way. It's making sure everything is there and suitable.
Yeah, and lots of our pumping stations are designed with a standby pump or a backup system anyway, especially the larger ones. And we've got obviously telemetry that tells us, exactly what the pump's doing. So if there is an issue, we are able to get out and respond to that fairly quickly.
Brilliant, thanks both of you. There's an interesting comment from Helen that I'd like to highlight, is that lots of pollution incidents are caused by what people flush down toilets. Raising awareness of this in catchments is one of the key things that can be done by groups, not just Anglian Water. So we're really keen to support that through CamEO as well, working with all of our partners. We've probably got time for one more question before we move on. So do Anglian Water have a programme in place to reduce hydrological overload by preventing clean ground and surface water ingress into foul pipes?
Yeah, so we've got various, where we identify an issue with that, we have infiltration plans in place for individual kind of areas, and we share those with the EA as well. So yes, we do. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which areas are covered by an infiltration plan, but I'm sure if there is a specific area you're interested in, we can always take that away and I can find out for you.
Brilliant, thanks, Donna. There's an awful lot of questions, but I will make sure we take them away and we manage to get a coherent response to that. But thank you both very much for your presentations. That was really interesting.
Thanks for having us.
No problem at all. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So